Hello, my awesome project managers. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to this very brief discussion, just a little introduction to Agile, because I know a lot of you are still grappling with it. So I wanted to talk to you really quickly about the world of Agile one more time. So let's talk about some of the concerns that I've been hearing from students. A lot of students are concerned about this new exam and the presence of Agile has been said to be deafening. It's really, really huge on this exam. But it made me think about what this new exam format could possibly end up doing to project managers. First of all, I think it's going to create a gap, a distance, some sort of separation, if you will, between those who took the old exam. And it's amazing how much difference a few days could make. Just last week, we had people taking the exam, the old exam, and sharing lessons learned and ideas. And the 2nd of January, GMT, not even Pacific or Eastern, it was GMT. The moment it was the 2nd of January, GMT, people started taking the new exam. And all of that knowledge and all of that information and all that intel and all that lessons learned that people were sharing, no one's interested anymore. People are saying, where's the new exam? Who's taking the new exam? And that's why a few days ago, I came up with a video where I showed you a couple of students who had taken the new exam and what they said. And what they came back to say was the Agile presence was huge. It was massive. So I feel this is going to create a gap between those who are very, very predictive aware, which is okay. Those who are very predictive aware, and those who are not as predictive aware, and those who are very agile aware versus those who are not very agile aware. And this new terminology that a lot of you are just beginning to learn regarding agile that you never used before, like daily stand-ups or scrums or retrospectives or reviews. You're now having to learn this new language, as it were, all over again. Even though you were great with PMBOK, now this is totally new, and a lot of it is uncertain. It's okay. You're going to get up to speed, but I can see in the long run, there are going to be people that go for interviews. Just like I went for an interview one day in 2005. And in the interview, you know what the question they asked me? In the interview, they asked me, run us through, you're going to love this, how to create and implement an earned value management system. Now tell me, if all you are concentrating on is very heavy agile and heavy hybrid, and you got no clue about the SPIs and the CPIs and the CVs and SVs of this world, how will you fare in such an interview? You'll be like a day in the headlights. You get what I'm saying? So there has to be heavy balance. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but there has to be quite a balance. In other words, you need to be a guru in predictive. You need to be a guru in agile. You need to be a guru in using the critical path. You need to be a guru in understanding features, user stories, and how to run the product backlog, even if you're not the product owner, stuff like that. You got to be in both worlds, because there's a possibility that one day you might need it. So in my interview, when I was asked about SPI and earned value and stuff, I mean, I just blurted everything out from the beginning all the way to the end. And by the time I was done, because I had really done a lot of research on earned value as I was preparing for the exam. So I was all over that stuff, you see. Flip side, you can get someone going for an interview and they expect you to know all of this agile and hybrid stuff, and you don't. Bad, because the expectation is going to be there. What I see in the long run is the ACP is probably going to take a little bit of a backseat, like it or not. Give it about a year or two of PMP, and people are going to be thinking, okay, I can buy one and get two free. I can buy a PMP and I can get an agile specialist, even though you're not necessarily, a bit about agile, but the agile specialist is ACP, but people are going to begin thinking wrongly. And I just give it a couple of years and the poor ACP exam, who knows what's going to happen to that. But people are going to be placing heavy demands on you as a PMP. The only thing is, I think the awareness of the much loved, I say that in jest for some of you. I love it. I don't know about you, but the much loved earned value management and critical path and all that stuff, I feel that a lot of folks will go to interviews and not be able to bring it because they didn't focus on it for the exam very much. I mean, we've already been listening to students who have passed the new exam, and those students are saying, ITTOs was nowhere. It was all either agile, watch this, agile, or leadership, situational stuff, or hybrid. You see the craziness? So if you think about the people piece, you could write lines and lines of leadership and stakeholder engagement all day long and not get tired, because people is really all about chapter 9 and 13 and 10, maybe a little bit of 13. So if you go through the people tasks in this new exam, it is so heavily chapter 9. And that's because that's where the people are, right? Chapter 13, that's where the people are. So my advice to you, my friends, is for this exam, don't listen to the dogma that says, oh, it's only going to be 50-50. No, it's not. No, it's not. I would rather look at it like a 65 agile and hybrid and a 35 predictive, just to balance it up, because I know a lot of you have eaten the PMBOK guide for lunch, just like I recommended you did. But when it came to your veggies, the agile practice guide, you didn't study it. You got to study both. You got to understand both. You got to understand both worlds, and that's why I will be speaking to you this evening really quickly about agile. Those of you, my friends on the other side of the world, it's morning. Yeah, for those of you, my friends in India, my friends in Saudi, in Oman. Yes, I know it is morning. So why don't we jump into a little bit of the introduction to agile? Okay. You're going to have to apply yourself to grow, my friends. If nothing else, this is what I want you to take away. The same tenacity and viciousness that you attack the PMBOK guide with the 49 processes and all that stuff is the same way I would recommend you know this book inside out, backwards and forwards. You look at all the words and they all make sense, right? And it's not necessarily just knowing frameworks. It's not knowing the Scrum and the Kanban and the TDD and FDD. It's not just that. That is good. But the other piece that is going to trump all those frameworks, because my experience on the ACP exam was they just stayed so agnostic away from all of this talk about Scrum or Kanban. I mean, I was shocked. There were not that many questions that tested the methods or the frameworks, but there were a ton of questions that tested the mindset, the leadership mindset for Agile, the team collaboration mindset for Agile, and things like that. It was huge. It was so big. I'm like, wow, the mindset trumped everything. And that was good, you see. And that's what I liked about the ACP. And it had a lot of promise, but I've got no idea what PMI is doing right now with that, because their efforts with PMP, it seems to be diminishing the ACP. Like it or not, it is what it is. All right, let's see which of our friends just chatted in. I think I saw a friend of ours. Shiva, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for the chat. Well, why don't we go into a little bit of the introduction to Agile? Because I know a lot of us are still trying to wrap our arms around this topic of Agile. So let's first of all think, why should we care about Agile? Why do you even consider doing Agile? You see, the challenge that we have is a lot of organizations are trying to find new ways of doing things. And we know that in some firms, in some business areas, technology has changed, industries have changed, markets have changed. And it's no longer possible to do these huge, long running projects, right? We need to do things a lot quicker. You think about people like Amazon, and they're churning out these very, very quick releases, and you've got other companies doing similar. You don't want to be left behind, so you need to adjust, right? We need to keep our customers happy because they're expecting things like this real quick. So most organizations start out saying, oh, we want Agile to be faster, better, cheaper. You've obviously heard that a lot. But it's not just about that, right? We can go faster a lot of times, we can go cheaper. But what do we want to do? To confound the competition, we want to get better. And how do you get better? You get better by using Agile to get feedback faster, to move, to respond faster, to respond so you can deliver value faster. So, what Agile does for you is it allows a change in your organization to happen faster, but with higher quality, and it enables you evolve. So, Agile is not for the strongest. It's for those who are able to adapt. Even in the world of evolution, we see those creatures that couldn't adapt. Where are they today? They are nowhere. So, Agile, the mindset, is one that allows you to adapt, one that allows you to move. Something that's very important to remember is that Agile is just a tool to help you get to success. So there's some Agile zealots in the world, people who say it has to be Agile, everything has to be Agile. No, everything does not have to be Agile. That is a false religion. Not everything needs to be Agile. Some things could be, and where it is not appropriate, some other things should not be. So there's a lot of practices within the Agile umbrella, but your focus should not be on just using a practice because it's the fad of the day. Like people just use Scrum because their neighbors are using it. No, that is not the way to use Agile. Agile, first of all, needs to be a mindset. And part of the Agile mindset is, what is the best way for me to work now? If being partly predictive and being partly agile makes the most sense, then do it. If being totally to the left of agile makes sense, then do it. So that brings up the question, why agile? Let's talk about this image. I've shown it quite a lot on this channel. It's called the Stacey complexity model. And oh, for those of you that have your new favorite book, this one, I want you to go on down to page 14 because you can take a look at this image that I'm about to show you in the Agile practice guide. You see this one right here? Take a look at that. It's called the Stacey complexity model. And honestly, the first time I saw the Stacey complexity model, I knew that it was going to help a lot of my students, a lot of people understand why we do what we do, either agile or otherwise. So, which delivery method is best? This diagram, the Stacey complexity model, helps you understand. So, let's consider the complexity model and let's start from close to certainty. Let me see if I can mark this up for you right here. Close to certainty over here. See this? Close to certainty. So consider that. This is in the simple area right here. This is where predictive and, if you will, waterfall projects work best. Simple stuff is where the waterfall works exceedingly well, and it's where things are very well understood. This refers to requirements that are close to certainty. And you know, these requirements are definitely requirements that you're going to implement. So when you use a predictive approach, it needs to be because you know, yep, that's something I'm going to do. But not everything works that way. When you think about predictive project management or the waterfall approach, the waterfall's history came from where? Construction, right? And that's where things had to be very well known. So there's hope for taking agile and using it in other industries. Just because it started in IT doesn't mean that it can't be used elsewhere over time. The same way waterfall started in construction, and over time it permeated everywhere. But let's talk about uncertainty, right? When you are far from certainty and far from agreement, you cannot do everything in this simple predictive fashion. You're moving into the world of complex, you're moving into the world of anarchy. You need to be thinking about agile. That's where agile is best, where there's high variability, where there are experiments done to carry out the work, where change is likely, Waterfall, on the other hand, works best when requirements are well understood and when there's a little chance of change. But not every organization is going to embrace this upfront. Think about it. One of the essential things in an organization is to have buy in. Your organization needs to accept that Agile is a different way of doing things. How we're going to get status and monitor progress and how we're going to feed something to our teams is going to be different. So we need buy in from senior leadership to make sure they understand. So buy in is a huge, huge need. Another thing that we want to encourage is what we will call T shaped skills. So to give it a visual, think about the letter T, broad, but at the same time, a deep area of specialisms. So we're graduates, we're professionals, right? And sometimes we make up words like T-shaped skills. It makes you wonder, what on earth is that? But it means you need to have a deep understanding of your expertise. That SME, subject matter expertise or expert judgment, whatever you want to call it. So while you've got an assortment of skills from many, many different areas, you've got your specialty, your specialism, but you're flexible across this broad base. So it doesn't mean that you're going to become an expert in stepping outside of your skills, right? You're not going to be an expert in all of these areas, but you're able to flame on, flame off whenever you need to at a reasonable level. And that's what makes self organizing cross functional teams valuable because people can jump in to rescue each other. Let's talk about one more thing. The other thing we get as an organization is that we get to reduce risk and we get to worry less about resource allocation. We move away from the concept of resource allocation and instead, we're going to give this work to a team and the team will figure out how to do it. So once it's in the hands of the team, you're not worrying about resource allocation and ERP and all that stuff we normally worry about in the world of predictive. Let's talk about co-location. This one is a funny one to talk about in the world that we live in now because the way we saw co-location pre-COVID, it's changed. No one is thinking about co-location like this. Instead, people are asking the question, how do we practice agile in a virtual world? But nonetheless, when things come back to normal, right, we probably will be thinking about co-location again. So co-location was not even always possible, even pre-COVID, right? We have virtual organizations. Some organizations exist entirely virtually. So co-location is just a lot more difficult now. People working remotely, people working from home for long periods. So at the very least, if you can't be physically located, you should be physiologically located, psychologically located. You should be co-located in mind such that if your team member is on the other side, they know that you're with them wherever you are. And one of the ways to do this is turning on the camera, Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting, some other mechanism which allows that psychological connection. I cannot tell you the difference between trying to teach when everyone is camera off, can't see the instructor, can't see the students, versus when the students can see themselves and when they can see the instructor as well. So, my friends, this is just the beginning of a lot more dialogue that we're going to be having about the world of Agile and how it affects your PMP exam. If you have any specific questions about the PMP exam, I would like to answer them for you. But I want you to know that there are going to be some significant changes. It's very, very evident there is going to be change. You know, this whole concept of Agile is not just for IT. I had a student or a listener on YouTube who was quite offended and said, why should they force people in construction into this rabbit hole of Agile? We don't want Agile. You cannot run a construction project using Agile. And I said, well, although construction has been known to be predictive, there are elements of it. There are elements of Agile that you can take and put into construction. Simple concepts, very simple concepts like prototyping, for example, intentionally. That could be used. Daily stand-ups could be used, retrospectives could be used, demos, sprint reviews, things that we typically did not think of in that fashion could be used. So it is important that you have a mindset shift to understand that Agile is not just for IT. Like I said, it started out in IT, but it's been used in a lot of places. And trust me, my buddy Roy and I, we have trained organizations that are so not in the IT space. They're in hardware, but they realize that there is value from using an agile approach. Okay. So remember that IT or agile is more about the mindset of how we do the work rather than building in all of that flexibility and the way we do things in software. Think about it. The way we do things in predictive is the way it is because we know all our requirements up front. The way we do things in agile is different because we don't know everything up front, and that's okay. So you need to have an open mind, coming towards agile. Something else that you're looking to do with agile is you're looking to eliminate waste in your organization. You can think of at least one thing you do as an organization that's not bringing a lot of value, right? Every organization has waste, and what we want to do with agile is get rid of waste, things that we shouldn't be doing, things that we don't need to do. We want to get rid of those. So, my friends, again, this is the new world order that the PMI has set forth through the PMP exam. Honestly, there's not very much we can do about it. We just have to wake up, smell the coffee, move on, prepare for exam. And when you go back to your respective companies, the likelihood is that they're going to tell you to do things still predictively, maybe a little bit of hybrid. But I know some people are going back to a totally predictive world. But for your exam, you got to put on your agile thinking cap. Okay. For those of you struggling with this idea of agile and you're like, well, I still don't get all of it, Phil, I need help, I would recommend you go to agileprinciple.com. We got training coming up this weekend in agile, and it's going to be a 4-week training. Go sign up there. We also have the project management masterclass.com, and honestly, that is so full right now. In fact, we only have 1 or 2 spaces left. So on projectmanagementmasterclass.com, we're going to be shutting down registration in the next day or so. And if you want to be part of that class and Project Management Masterclass, um, you got to sign up for the next one. So for those of you wondering how to sign up, let me show you. For the course that is going to cover both the predictive world and the agile world, you need to go on down to Project Management Masterclass right there. And there's the information for the course. And for those of you that want to sign up for the Agile class, just the Agile, go on down to agileprinciple.com. Any questions for me about anything that's bothering you as you've been preparing for this test? Let me know, put it in the chat, and I'll do my best to get to it. That's the agileprinciple.com site, and you can sign up for Agile training with Roy, my buddy, and I on Saturday. We're going to get you into ship shape, make sure that you are thinking the right way for your exam. It's really a thought process type of thing. All right. I see one of our friends chatted in. Ibrahim, how are you, Ibrahim? Looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. Ibrahim says it looks that agile is a long trip. It could be a very long trip, but honestly, Ibrahim, when you come on Saturday, you'll realize that it's very, very easy to understand the overall idea. But when we get into the very tiny little pieces of it, we're going to need those 4 weeks. So you are looking at March. That's more than enough time, Ibrahim. That's far more than enough time. So before we get to your exam in March, Ibrahim, you know what I would advise you to do? You got to read this book, and then all of the material that Roy and I are going to be giving you. We're going to be giving you about 200 slides on top of that. All of the content that we give you the definitions, the ideas, the class exercises, everything. Just focus on it real good. You'll come away feeling very, very comfortable with Agile. There are a lot of overarching ideas, but we're going to explain all of them. So you do not want to miss it on Saturday, okay? Awesome. All right. Any further questions or concerns? All right. It does not look as though there are any. So I want to say thank you very much, my friends, for joining me. This was meant to be like an open session where if you had questions, you could ask them and I would answer them for you. But as far as the teaching for today, that is it. For those just coming, you can always go back and watch what I said again. And the title of today was just an introduction to Agile. We're just going pretty light, nothing heavy, no crazy methods or frameworks for tonight. Okay. Thank you very much. Best wishes. And as more information about the exam comes to light, you can be sure I will be sharing it with you. Take care and bye for now.